Power levels are one of the most iconic tropes in all of Dragon Ball. Though other series had used systems like it before, Dragon Ball's way of telling how powerful someone is with just the click of a button stuck out in all of our minds. I'm sure many of us have that collective memory of going through forums or YouTube videos which compiled power levels beyond what the series showed us, with very questionable sources. Some made up and some real but insane. So today I've compiled a list of every official power level in the series, dividing them up into various sections, depending on the source, starting off with the original manga and the anime, since the anime only has a handful of extra power levels. Then onto guides, video games, etc. With that being said, I'm not talking about like wafer stickers or video game guides that give random NPCs power levels, because they're so much harder to track down. And although I do own a few, I don't think the power levels of the 5 Ginyu Force recolors are really relevant to any modern conversation. Also, if you want to support weird Dragon Ball deep dives like this and want to get some extra videos or early content, then the best way to support me is through Patreon. Thank you to anyone who considers this. So, let's begin. The first power level we see in the series is an Earthling farmer with a power level of 5, when Raditz first arrives on Earth in chapter 195. Then, during the Raditz fight, Goku weighs in at a power level of 334, and without weights, he jumps to 416. His Kamehameha is set to boost his power to 924, which is over 2 times his base. It's not exactly clear if this is exactly how it works with how this series progresses. It could just be an arbitrary increase of power, like instead of being 2 times plus his power, it's an additional 508 or something. People tank the Kamehameha a little too often for it to be a literal increase of 2 times. Switching to Piccolo, he's also been training with weights on, slightly weaker than Goku at 322, but without weights, he's at 408. It seems like Piccolo was focusing on techniques instead of raw power, as his special beam cannon blows the Kamehameha out of the water with a power level of 1330, over 3 times stronger than his base. Keep in mind, this is only the first special beam cannon, not the one that actually kills Raditz. We do see a power level for that, but not in the manga. Kid Gohan has the most volatile power level out of anybody. While he's in the ship crying, his power level rises to 710. Then, he explodes in rage to save his dad, jumping to 1307, before quickly passing out and dropping back down to 1. On the other side, we've got Raditz with a power level of at least 1200. His power level isn't actually set during the fight, but later on, Nappa mentions how the Cybermen have a power level of over 1200, and are said to be equal to Raditz. So no wonder he didn't bring any out. One rogue Cyberman and he was in trouble, although he does have other power levels we'll see later on. And as I mentioned before, the second special beam cannon gets a power level in the anime, 1485, exactly 155 units above the last one. Then we move on to the training. Piccolo's training with Gohan has raised him only slightly by 7 points, putting him at 329. Using Raditz's scouter, Bulma reads the power levels of all the Z fighters around the world before they get to training. Roshi is 139, Yamcha 177, Krillin 206, and Tenshinhan at 250. The anime also adds her reading the power level of Turtle as .001, which has crazy implications when he beats these two guys up later on. The anime also has a section of filler training for the Z fighters in the Pendulum Room, where the Illusion Saiyans read the team's power levels. Tien, Krillin, Yamcha, and Chaozu are said to be less than 1507 combined, so they have a lot of training to do. Once the Saiyans arrive on Earth and everyone meets up, Nappa begins to read Gohan, Krillin, and Piccolo's power levels, 981, 1083, and 1220 respectively. We don't see who they belong to in the manga, even if it is pretty easy to reason, but the anime does clarify. It's also worth noting that they are suppressed, since Krillin kills multiple Cybermen at once, and like I said before, the Cybermen are over 1200. Vegeta also confirms that the power levels of the humans are greater than 1200 when Tien beats up a Cyberman. We also get a really powerful boost from Gohan's Masenko at 2800. The Z fighters fall one by one until Goku arrives with a suppressed power power level of 5,000. This spikes it up to over 8,000 as Vegeta breaks his scouter, although the English dub has a mistranslation of calling it over 9,000 instead. This isn't stated, but Goku does use the Kaioken, which would boost his power to over 16,000. The fight ramps up as Bulma tries to use Raditz' scouter to check what's going on. As Goku uses the Kaioken times 3, the scouter goes from 17,000 to 21,000, and then it explodes. So it looks like that's the limit for these old model of scouters. Goku's power level at Kaioken times 3 should be over 24,000, and over 32,000 at Kaioken times 4. Going back to what I said about the Kamehameha likely not being a set multiplier, since if it was a 2 times increase, then it would boost him to over 64,000, an insane level for Goku to be at this early on, and it'll become clear why as we continue. On the other side, we have Vegeta at 18,000. According to multiple sources, including Vegeta himself here, the boost from the Great Ape transformation is 10 times, meaning his power level should be 180,000. But he does mention that the Power Ball brings his power down. Still, if we were looking at it with just raw numbers, he would be one of Frieza's strongest soldiers, above even the Ginyu Force. This makes it a little more clear why Frieza was actually scared of the Saiyans. Though something curious is that in Dragon Ball Super Broly, Paragus talks about the Ozaru as an undesirable transformation that makes you lose control. Vegeta can control it, but it almost makes it seem like, culturally, transforming like this is looked down upon. I believe that the Ozaru is something seen as if only weak Saiyans had to rely to this because they couldn't take over planets as normal. Anyways, this brings us to Namek. On planet Namek, Krillin and Gohan beat down 2 soldiers. At this point in the beginning of the arc, their power level is 1,500. Meanwhile, Vegeta faces Qui. The Frieza soldier claims to be equal to Vegeta at 18,000, only for Vegeta's power level to rise from 19,000 to 24,000. Qui's scouter breaks at 22. Dodoria, though, is a bit more bougie, and he has the new model of scouter, which reads his power level properly. Namekian warriors then arrive to battle the Frieza force, starting with a suppressed power level of 1,000 and shooting up to 3,000. Once the Ginyu Force arrives, Krillin and Gohan face Goldo. They recently had their power level unleashed by the Grand Elder of Namek, pushing them above 10,000, as said by Jace. The next fighter up to bat is Recoome. When Vegeta fought Recoome, the original printing of the manga volumes had his power level said to be nearly 20,000. This is an obvious mistake, since it would make him weaker than the start of the arc. The Kansenban release changes this to close to 30,000. Gohan blasts him with a Masenko, and although the attack's power isn't set in the manga, the anime says it shot up to 20,000. While all of this mess is going on, Frieza goes to the Grand Elder's home to figure out how to summon the dragon, but he's attacked by 3 Namekian warriors in the anime, whose power level he reads as 10,000, which is insane. What were they doing? They could have been useful while their whole race was dying. Nail goes on to fight Frieza, with an impressive power level of 42,000. What may be the most iconic power level outside of it's over 9,000 comes in when Frieza faces Nail, declaring his power level as 530,000. When Goku lands on Namek and challenges the Ginyu Force, he has a suppressed power level of 5,000. When Jace talks to Ginyu about Goku, the captain estimates Goku's power as 60,000, since he beat up the Ginyu Force. But after fighting him, he estimates Goku is at 85,000. But when Goku uses Kaioken, his real power shoots from 90,000 to 180,000. Hypothetically speaking, with Kaioken times 10, his power level would be 900,000. Captain Ginyu, on the other hand, has a power level of 120,000, according to Jace. But once he steals Goku's body, because he couldn't control his power properly, his battle power goes down to 23,000. Now onto the Frieza fight. Vegeta didn't get a power level in this section, but when they grapple, Frieza is clearly struggling, and his scouter breaks during the struggle. Thanks to Ginyu, we know that scouters can read up to at least 180,000. So Vegeta should be above that. Those Zenkai boosts were doing God's work. The next power level mentioned in the manga is Frieza's second form of over 1 million. And that's more or less it. The next power level we see is Future Trunks' suppressed power level of 5, when he kills the Frieza soldiers. This is the final power level stated in the manga, though the Buu Saga does have a new unit of measurement named Kili, which I'll discuss later on. In Yo Son Goku and his friends return, we don't get much for real power levels. Turbo mentions that they're strong, and his scouter explodes when Goku goes Super Saiyan. The only thing close to a real power level is Goten and Trunks', as read by Abo Kamo and Kado. In the anime, the numbers are moving, but they look to be real numbers. The manga sticks very close to this, so it looks like they had something in mind. I'm not exactly sure what it's supposed to say. I could read either 132,000 or 133,000 in the anime, or something like 190,000 in the manga. This is Goten and Trunks walking up suppressed though, so they're likely a lot higher. The modern Dragon Ball movies also have a couple of power levels. In Resurrection F, Frieza predicts that by training for 4 months, he could increase his power level to 1.3 million. This was removed from the anime adaptation because that's barely even stronger than his second form. In Dragon Ball Super Broly, while Frieza visits planet Vegeta, he reads a Saiyan sniper's power level as 2000. Later, when King Vegeta reads Broly's power level, the scouter device quickly explodes. But on Vampa, Paragus finds him with a power level of 920 after shrinking down from being an Ozaru, which could imply a power level of 9200. Though Broly's power level widely fluctuates, and more than likely was a lot more than that. Beat, the Saiyan who accompanies Paragus, mentions that his power level is below 920. When Sheila and Lemo find the father and son duo, Paragus's power level is read as 4200, and Broly's as 99,999, before capping out completely. So it's probably a lot higher. Frieza also uses a scouter as planet Vegeta is destroyed, but these numbers are largely unreadable and quickly decrease. So I guess planet Vegeta's power level after its destruction is 0? Goku and Vegeta get their power levels read later on, and even while resting, the scouters can't actually measure their strength. The Dragon Ball Super manga only has 2 power levels after the anime stops, coincidentally both from Naito, one when he's suppressed, at only 5, and when trying to fight Bardock, as it rises to 213. As for the specials and movies from the old Z era, we have a few more. There is the Bardock special, where a doctor mentions that Bardock's power level is nearing 10,000, and Baby Goku with a power level of 2. The dub mentions that King Vegeta is around 10,000 as well, but this is not in the Japanese. In Tree of Might, Gohan is stated to have a power level of 10,000, so by calculations, his power level should be 100,000 as an Ozaru. Piccolo has a power level of 18,000, while Goku has a power level of 30,000, or around 300,000 with Kaioken times 10. When Turles eats the fruit from the Tree of Might, he manages to beat down Goku, meaning that he rose above that level. In Cooler's Revenge, Gohan's power drops to 50 when he gets grabbed by his tail. And finally, Baby Broly in his first film had a power level of 10,000. Before we move on to guides, I want to mention a couple of spin-offs. In That Time I Got Reincarnated as Yamcha, a comedy one-shot, this well-trained Yamcha has a power level of 10,000 in the Saiyan arc. While in this rare Dragon Ball Kochikame crossover, Apul states that Ryotsu, the main character of Kochikame, has a power level so low that he has to be a gag manga character, scaring Frieza off the planet. Anyways, those are all the power levels in the manga and the anime. But outside sources, such as guides, statements, and video games, give us a clearer, and sometimes a weirder, view of things. We will begin with the Daizenshuu 7 Databook, a guidebook published in 1996, as the series had just ended, which included a battle power guide. This guide also included the ones from the manga, but since I already covered those, I'll just be focusing on the ones exclusive to this guide. With the start of the series, Kid Goku is given a power level of 10 and jumps to 100 as an Ozaru at Pilaf's castle, following Vegeta's statement of a 10 times multiplier. Master Roshi during the 21st World Tournament has a power level of 139. So is that what's required to blow up a moon? It's unclear if this Roshi is at full power mode, but if Goku is anywhere close to him in the 21st World Tournament, then Ozaru Goku's power level is already over 1000 in this arc. In the 22nd World Tournament, we find Goku at 180, which is an exact match to his opponent, Tien, also at 180. No wonder the battle was so close. Meanwhile, the Crane Hermit had a power level of 120, so weaker than Roshi. During the final King Piccolo confrontation, and after drinking the Ultra Divine Water, Goku's power level is pushed to 260, also equal to young King Piccolo at 260. We then skip to the battle against Raditz, where he's given a power level of 1500, and Kid Gohan is anywhere from 1 to 1307. During the Nappa fight, Piccolo is at 3500, Tien at 1830, Krillin at 1770, Yamcha at 1480, and Chaozu at 610, while Nappa himself is given a power level of 4000. When they first arrive on Namek, Gohan and Krillin defeat two soldiers, Banan and Sui, who are given a power level of below 1,500 in their profile. Dodoria is set at 22,000, while base Zarbon is only slightly above him at 23,000. During the Ginyu Force battles, Gohan reached 14,000 and Krillin 13,000. Piccolo is also given a power level of over 1 million after merging with Nail in his character profile. And now, this is when we get the first power levels for Goku's battles with Frieza. Goku is at 3 million to be exact, meaning that Kaioken times 10 pushed him to 30 million, and times 20 to 60 million. Goku then jumps to 150 million with Super Saiyan. This is in line with the 50 times multiplier the Daizenshuu gives Super Saiyan as well. Frieza, on the other hand, is at 60 million at 50% power, matching Goku's Kaioken times 20, and at 100% power, Frieza reaches 120 million. That's it for the Daizenshuu power levels, with the guide mentioning that from then on powers became so high that they can't be calculated with numbers, adding that near-death Saiyan power-ups, or Zenkai boosts, became smaller and smaller.
I also forgot to record this because I kept moving it around, but there's only 2 Kili mentioned in the manga, Goku's of 3,000 and Yakon's of 800. The anime also mentions that Dabura has a Kili of over 4,000. The Daizenshuu 7 databook mentions that Kili of 200 to 300 means that you can destroy a planet or two, while El Manga Legendario mentions that a power level of 10,000 is enough to destroy a planet. However, in V-Jump, it's stated that 1 Kili equals 50,000 power level. This would mean that when Frieza destroyed planet Vegeta with a power level of 530,000 in his first form, he had 10.6 Kili, a far cry from the supposed 200 to 300 Kili needed to destroy a planet.
There are other guides that reference the Daizenshuu power levels, such as the Super Exciting Guide, a guidebook that had Toriyama as a supervisor. It also adds on the Super Saiyan multipliers. Like I mentioned, Super Saiyan is 50 times your base, Super Saiyan 2 is twice as strong as Super Saiyan, and Super Saiyan 3 is 4 times stronger than Super Saiyan 2. It also explains that Vegeta's power is Goku times Vegeta. But we're getting distracted with non-power levels. Weekly Shonen Jump had more battle powers during the manga's run, a lot of which were used in the Daizenshuu, but some of these were omitted. So let's talk about the ones they didn't include. Master Korin is given a power level of 190, slightly stronger than Roshi during the King Piccolo fight, where he is given a power level of 180, equal to both Goku and Tien at the World Tournament. Kami is set at 220, 40 points lower than King Piccolo. During the 23rd World Tournament, the Super Kamehameha Goku fires at Piccolo is given a power level of 910, 14 points weaker than his Super Kamehameha against Raditz. Chi-Chi, in her fight against Goku, is given a power level of 130, only 9 points weaker than Roshi in the first World Tournament. Cyborg Tao is set at 210. Yajirobe, who for some reason was omitted from the Daizenshuu out of all the Z fighters, is given a power level of 970 in the Saiyan arc, weaker than the Cybermen but stronger than Chaozu. One of the weirder power levels is Mr. Popo, with a power level of 1030 during the Saiyan arc, way stronger than both Kami and King Piccolo. But I guess that he was training the humans, so it makes sense that he'd get stronger too. King Kai is given 3500, and the last one is Vegeta, said to have immeasurable power, since this was published while the arc was still going on. V-Jump also has some power levels through its history. In its original issue, Vegeta was given a power level of 250,000 post-Raccoon fight, Gohan was given 200,000 and more when angry, and Krillin was given 75,000, both of them post-Potential Unlock and after the Ginyu fights. If so, then Potential Unleash seems to have boosted them over time, since they both begin the Goldo encounter at only above 10,000 each. Speaking of the Ginyu Force, you may have noticed that everyone besides Ginyu never gets power levels. While we know that the captain is 120,000, one of the only guides that state a power level for the rest is the Legendary Manga, a set of magazines that came with figures released in Europe, where the other Ginyus are said to probably be around 40,000 to 50,000. During the production of the first Cooler movie, Shonen Jump released character profiles on the Cooler Armored Squad, giving them all power levels. But given the fact that they fight a post-Planet Namek team of Z fighters, they have pretty low power levels all things considered. Salza is at 170,000, Naze at 163,000, and Dore at 185,000. Since we're on the topic of cooler, years later, in 2004, as a teaser for the movie characters being in Budokai 3, Gogeta, Broly, and Cooler were all given power levels in the magazine. Cooler was the weakest, at 470 million, then Broly, at 1.4 billion, and finally Gogeta, at 2.5 billion. Before we move on to weirder power level guides, I want to mention that there is a lot of other things that give power levels, like stickers or card as cards. The wafer stickers in particular are interesting because they use a completely different system with lower numbers. They could be worth making a video about later in the future if you guys want, but they're a little harder to track down. This is the same case with Battle of Z, which has its own power system. Either way, I'm not gonna be covering those. And the card as in particular are kind of all over the place, and I don't think are supposed to be taken super seriously. Plus, it seems impossible to find anywhere that shows a complete collection of them. The one sticker I do want to mention is the Bikuriman Broly sticker, which had information on the upcoming film. This sticker in particular was Raditz, and the information mentions that his power when fighting Piccolo and Goku was 1,600. This marks the third power level for Raditz, over 1,200 in the manga, as said by Nappa, 1,500 in the Daizenshuu, and 1,600 here. I also want to talk about a fun one. When Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F was coming out, Frieza's voice actor, Ryusei Nakao, said that Frieza's new power level was 100 quintillion. This is just a joke. This is actually a pun off of nice guy, a shorthand for 100 quintillion. It's just a joke, but funny to think about. And for all we know, sure, that's Frieza's revived power level. The next source we'll be looking at is the Tree of Might movie pamphlet. You could buy this infamous pamphlet at the 1990 Toei Animation Fair, where the third Dragon Ball Z movie was released. Though these are obviously power levels, some of them do actually come from the aforementioned card-ass cards, and were designated as battle points. Some try to stick with the real deal, like Raditz being 1,500, but a lot of them are kind of insane, and a clear example why the card-ass cards, or this pamphlet, should not be used in tandem with normal power levels. For example, Yajirobe was given a power level of 2,100, well above most of the Z fighters. Like, they have Tien at 1,830. Yajirobe was not stronger than him. People quote these all the time, and they can be funny. So let's check them out, but take them with a grain of salt. First, we have the Pilaf gang. Emperor Pilaf is the strongest, at 40, and both Shu and Mai are at 20. Then we go to the 21st World Tournament. Bacterian is set at 110, meaning that he could solo Ozaru Goku in the Pilaf arc. Nam and Giran are both 100, and Ranfan is 80. For the Red Ribbon Army arc, they've got Major Metallotron at 150, Colonel Silver at 200, Colonel Violet at 150, General White also at 150, General Blue 180, Staff Officer Black 150, Commander Red 100, and Tao Pai Pai at 240. For the King Piccolo arc, we've got the Demon King at 500, Tambourine at 340, Drum at 280, and Piano at 180. Next, we've got the first Dragon Ball Z movie, Dead Zone. Garlic Jr. is 1,450, and his henchmen, the Spice Boys, Ginger, Sancho, and Nikki, are all 350. The second Dragon Ball Z movie, World's Strongest, has Dr. Wheelo at 39,000, a huge jump from the last few, and Dr. Kochin at only 8. The Bioman, little Cybermen recolors, are 1,000. Then we have the other Bio Warriors. Ebifuria is at 7,500, Kishme 7,000, and Misokatsun 4,300. Now we move on to the Saiyan arc. King Yema is 1,300, directly contradicting the fact that the series says that he was stronger than Raditz. Princess Snake is at 900, King Kai is at 3,500, Gregory 1,100, and Bubbles just below him at 1,000. The Ghost Saiyans, Scarface and Shorty, are both 3,000. Raditz, as I mentioned before, is at 1,500, Nappa at 4,500, then the Cyberman at 1,300, and Vegeta 16,000, meaning that with this logic, a single Kaioken from Goku would have been enough to deal with them. Next up, we have the third Dragon Ball Z movie, Tree of Might. This is the movie the pamphlet is based on, so this is the version of the Z fighters they're using. We have our hero, Son Goku, Goku at 10,000, Piccolo at 8,200, Gohan at 6,000, Krillin at 5,000, Yajirobe at 2,100, Roshi at 350, Yamcha at 1,900, Tien at 1,830, Chi-Chi at 300, Master Korin is 290, Mr. Popo is 300, Kami is 400, Oolong and Puar are both 10, and Bulma is 12. I guess she's been working out. Perhaps the single most famous power level on the list is Ox King at 900. It's insane that they decided to put him this high up. Sure, he did train with Roshi a long time ago, but why is he well above Mr. Popo and Kami? Hell, he's beating everyone in Dragon Ball by himself, and with a bit of training, he would have wiped the floor with a good bit of the Saiyan arc. What is he doing? They should have trained with him instead. The Lakers need him. Anyways, for the villains of the film, we've got Turles at 19,000, Kakao at 13,000, Amont at 9,100, Days is at 8,400, Raisin at 8,000, and Lacazette at 7,600. Then we move on to the Frieza arc, which was still airing at the time. They gave Murray a power level of 5,000, while Nail and the Grand Elder were given unknown power levels. Zarbon was given 17,000, Dodoria 15,000, and Kui 8,700. Just ignoring the fact that Kui says that he was equal to Vegeta. Finally, Frieza is given a power level of 85,000, well below what he would actually be. But to be fair, they had no idea what was coming. Now, video games are a whole other story. They've been throwing out power levels for decades, sometimes sticking close to canon, and sometimes just doing whatever sounded cool. I will be naming the relevant ones, even if they are repeated, for the sake of my own sanity. Some games, like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, Dragon Ball Online, and Dokkan Battle, correlate power levels to game progression, or levels. I wanted to cover Kakarot in particular, but the power levels depend on many factors, like the food you eat and the level you're at. But just as a general example, Goku begins the game at level 2 with 365. But in the 23rd World Tournament DLC, at level 11, Goku has a power level of 412. There's also some weird trends, like endgame Gohan being not that much stronger than Krillin at the highest level. They do kinda try to correlate it to what it should be, with exponential jumps as the story progresses, but they are a little all over the place to cover properly. Still, I wanted to mention that at level 300, completely at full max level, these are the power levels for the heroes in the base game for me, so it should be somewhere around here for everyone once they reach max level. Goku is above 25 million, Gohan nearly 17 million, Vegeta 24 million, Piccolo 23 million, Future Trunks above 23 million, Krillin 15 million, Yamcha nearing 4 million, Tien close to 18 million, Chaozu 3 million, Goten 20 million, Present Trunks 20 million, and Android 18 nearing 18 million. In Xenoverse, there's a reference to the Metal Coolers having a power level of 10 billion, which is really just a silly reference to the movie title, Clash, 10 billion powerful warriors. Whether or not it's actually accurate to the film is questionable. In Assault, the Saiyans, things start small but escalate fast. Ozaru Gohan sits at 10,000, while the lesser-known filler characters, like the Saiyans, Pumpkin, or Scarface, is at 400, Broco, or Shorty, is at 500, barely breaking triple digits. The Dead Zone crew gets in on the fun as well. Sancho is 1,300, Nikki is 1,200, Ginger is 1,500, and Garlic Jr. himself is at 2,500 in base form, and 3,500 when transformed. Raditz is right where we expect, at 1,500, and Nappa comes in at 4,000. Ozaru Vegeta is given 70,000, which is weirdly low compared to his usual multiplier. Maybe they were just accounting for the artificial moon, making him weaker, I guess? King Kai gets a surprising 4,500 here, putting him above Nappa, which makes no sense since King Kai acts like Nappa was the boogeyman. Over in The Violent God Frieza, Apu gets 6,000, Kui is at 19,000, slightly above Vegeta's 18, which at least matches his confidence. Dodoria is at 22,000, Zarbon in base form is 23,000, and when transformed, he shoots up all the way to 55,000. One of the biggest jumps we've seen. Goldo sits at 19,000, Recoome hits 71,000, Jai's 64,000, and Birder 68,000. Ginyu is at 160,000, and Frieza's first form is the standard 530,000, with all higher forms being immeasurable. Then there's also the Super Saiyan Legend, where Raditz and Nappa stick to 1,500 and 4,000, but Ozaru Vegeta is 180,000, matching the 10 times rule perfectly. The Cybermen also have many variations here, like in future games. For example, the regular Cyberman is 1,200, while the Copyman is 1,000, Tenenman is 2,200 or 2,400, and the Jinko-man caps off at 4,800. There are other random NPCs as well, like Frieza soldiers, but I won't be mentioning them. I just thought these were worth bringing up since they appear in many video games. Apul has two possible readings, 1,500 or 1,700. Same goes for his recolor, Oren, who can be 4,600 or 5,600. King Kai is back up to 4,000, so the games really wanna hype him up. Kui is 18,000, Dodoria 22,000, Zarbon Base is 23,000, and when transformed, he's 30,000. Goldo is only at 13,500 this time, Recoome at 65,000, and Birder at 62,500. Jace though. Jace is listed as 640,000 in the game's guidebook, which means that he's supposedly stronger than Frieza's first form. This is obviously a typo, or Jace is just him in this game. Frieza sticks to the classic 530,000, going up to 1 million in his second form, 1,550,000 in his third, and 3 million in his final. There's even a what-if Super Saiyan Vegeta sitting at 6 million. For the heroes, Goku is given a power level of around 270,000 in base, shooting up to 2.9 million with Kaioken times 20. At the highest level, Super Saiyan Goku reaches 4,999,999, but can get a potential awakening card, allowing him to reach 7,499,998, the highest in the entire game. Gohan at the highest level is around 980,000, while Piccolo, after fusing with both Neo and 2 extra Namekians, reaches around 1 million, but can merge with Dende to get up to 1,900,000, which is a little weird since Dende's own power level in this game is only 10. One of my favorite Dragon Ball games of all time is Dragon Ball Z Attack of the Saiyans. It's a really good RPG, and through it, you can scan every enemy for a power level, which means there's a lot to cover. So instead, I'm not going to do that, and we're just gonna talk about the bosses. Jackie Chun is given a power level of 139. Pao Pao, a girl Krillin has to fight, is 126. The Rabbit boss is 121. A possessed Chaozu is 120. A demon called Dark Flame is 130. The 23rd World Tournament Piccolo is 292. The filler character Anin is given a power level of 330. The Shoe Machine is 432, and the Mai Machine is 461, while the combined Pilaf Machine is 2,280. The Blue Flames of the Furnace is 552, and the green one is 598. Raditz is 1,500. The Dinosaur is 120. Dongilas is 616. The Genie of the Fountain is 656. The Guardian of the Fountain is 611. Midgilas is 545. Gos, the Oni from Hell, is 541. Princess Snake is 546, while her true snake form is 891. The Sand Eagle is 1,620. Android number is an appropriate 888. General White is an insane 800. He's just supposed to be a normal human. The Giant Octopus is 1,788. The Red Ribbon Army's strongest mecha is 1,840. The Women's Devil's Toilet is 1,990, while the Men's is 1,960. The Bronze Pinball is 960, the Silver one, 1,020, and the Gold one, 1,330. The Improved Robot is 1,840. Tao Pai Pai EX is 2,030. Raditz's Soul in Otherworld is 1,800. So I guess that Zenkai boost kicked in? But the second time you fight him, he's 3,000. Nappa is 4,000, Vegeta is 18,000, while Ozaru Vegeta is 180,000. Finally, the secret boss is Broly at 999,999, which should be extremely low for what he usually is. But that's also where the scouter caps off. Or you could say, Broly's power is maximum. In Goku's Soaring Legend, the game only gives power level to the boss characters. So we start out in the Dragon Ball era with Tao Pai Pai at 115, Tien from the 23rd World Tournament is 218, and Piccolo from the same tournament is 325. Then we hit the Saiyan arc, and Raditz is actually 1200 here, meaning he is equal to a Cyberman, except the Cybermen in this game are 3000. Oh, and Nappa is 7000, which is a little high, and Vegeta is 15,000, lower than usual. Goku's legendary fierce fighting goes deep into the Namek arc numbers, starting with Apul at 1520, Kui at 19,080, Dodoria at 21,500, Zarbon at 20,400, and going up to 34,000 when transformed. Ginyu ranges from 120,000 to 240,000, Rikum 52,000, Jace 50,120, Birder 50,600, and Goldo is at a measly 11,850. Frieza gets some strange treatment here, 250,000 in his first form, which only makes him 10,000 stronger than Ginyu at his highest. Then he jumps to 530,000 in his second form, aka the usual number for his first, going up to 1,100,000 in his third, 2,500,000 in his final form, and 5 million at his full power. Then we have Dragon Ball Z Sagas, which also only really lists the bosses. Raditz is 1,200 again, Nappa is 4,000, Rikum is 40,000, Birder and Jais are a combined 95,000. At least, presumably combined, because otherwise, wow. Captain Ginyu gets 120,000, though he goes down to 23,000 when he takes Goku's body. Final form Frieza is 12 million, but here's where things get a little weird. Soba, Goku's Yardred Master exclusive to the game, is 14 million, meaning the game made an OC villain stronger than Frieza. In reality, Frieza's number here should be 120 million. Maybe a typo, or they just wanted to simplify things. Then we hit the Cell arc. Semi-Perfect Cell and the androids don't even get numbers, just 8 question marks in a row, and Perfect Cell gets 9 question marks. Ooh, he got stronger. Then there's Scouter Battle, a plug-and-play TV game. The Cybermen have a range of different colors, going from 1,200 to 1,440 in power. Nappa is his normal 4,000, while Vegeta is at 18,000. Frieza soldiers are 13,000, Dodoria 22,000, Zarbon 28,000, and Frieza in his final form jumps to 120 million, though he appears in his 50% state look. For the Cell arc, we have Battle Jackets with power levels of 1,000, and regular Cell Juniors with power levels of 46,655,274, though there are also mass-produced Purple Cell Juniors with power levels of 70 million. Perfect Cell is given a power level of 900 million. The Buu arc gives us 2 power levels. Good Buu is 1 billion, and Kid Buu is 1,150 million. We also get a very rare look at GT power levels. Machine Mutant Goons range from 1,500 to 1,800, while Super Cannon Sigma is 10 million. Metal Rildo is 1,200 million. Just like Goku says in the show, he's slightly stronger than Buu. Super Saiyan 4 Goku is 1,500 million. Super Baby Vegeta 2 is 1,300 million, and Golden Grade Baby Vegeta is 1,580 million. Super 17 is given a power level just like Goku, 1,500 million. However, the story of the game also adds villains returning from Hell. Tao Pai Pai, for example, returns with a power level of 200 million. Battle Jackets and Flying Red Ribbon Soldiers are also with them, with power levels ranging from 1,100 to 1,320. King Piccolo also returns, but takes the form of Piccolo Jr., with a power level of 500 million. His children accompany him in many colors, though they all look like Tambourine, with power levels from 1,500 to 1,800. Dodoria returns with 26,399, and Zarbon with 27,599. Final form Frieza evolves his power to 143,999,141, while Perfect Cell skyrockets to 1,079,956,055. Full of hell buffs. He also creates new Red Cell Juniors with power of nearly 84 million. Fat Buu appears with 1.2 billion, and Kid Buu with 1.3 billion. Even Baby Vegeta returns, this time with 1.5 billion, and nearly 1.9 billion as an Ozaru. Super 17 outclasses all of those before, with 1.8 billion. There's also a bonus battle with Broly at 1.4 billion, matching his V-Jump power level. The battle against Omega Shenron caps off the list at 1.9 billion. There are other power levels that are just straight up jokes, right? For example, one of my favorite what-ifs in any games comes from Dragon Ball Legends, where Raditz keeps having a Groundhog Day nightmare, where he faces the farmer with a shotgun over and over again. First, the farmer has a power level of 5, so Raditz kills him easily. But then he wakes up again and faces the same farmer, who now has a power level of 50. Still an easy win for Raditz, but strangely high for a human. So, Raditz wakes up again, this time with Nappa and Vegeta, who berate him for taking too long to take over Earth. This time he recognizes the farmer, who now has a power level of 5,000, several times stronger than Raditz, and even stronger than Nappa. He even kills Nappa, so Raditz wakes up again, this time with Frieza. The farmer has been hunting him down with a whopping 500,000 power level, nearly as strong as first form Frieza. The farmer wins, and even in his death, Raditz is haunted by him until he wakes up one last time in a cold sweat. He runs into the farmer, only with a power level of 5. He's back to reality, and he doesn't kill the farmer. He spares him, and realizes that maybe he shouldn't underestimate Earth. But those are just some fun ones. The final video game I'll touch upon before moving on is Dragon Ball Heroes Ultimate Mission. This game gives specific ranges of power level while using the 3DS camera as a scouter, having you take pictures of yourself and others. There's Immeasurable, which is what you get if you don't get a proper picture of your face. Ordinary people power level ranges from 1 to 5. Saibaman level is 1200, Yamcha level is 1480, Big Brother level is 1500, a reference to Raditz, Tien level is 1830, Gohan level is 2800, Nappa level is 4000, Strongest Earthling level is 13,000, a reference to Krillin, Dodoria level is 22,000, Zarbon is 23,000, Elite level is 30,000, a reference to Vegeta, Warrior level is 42,000, in reference to Nail, Captain level is 120,000, as Captain Ginyu. Frieza level can be both 530,000 and 1 million, depending on first or second form. Piccolo level is also 1 million. Goku level is 3 million. King of Terror level is 120 million. Frieza's 100% power. And finally, Super Saiyan level is 150 million. Finally, for the last thing we'll cover today, we will go to the pen and paper games. This often forgotten tabletop RPG was published in 1999, with 3 books covering up to the Android arc. It gives quite a bit of information on the characters, and tries to make the power levels make sense. I have a physical copy of the first book, but the others are much harder to find. Thankfully, all of them are online. We'll start off with the Saiyan arc. Goku sits at 8,000, Gohan at 2,800, and Piccolo at 3,400. Krillin is at 1,770, Yamcha at 1,600, Tien at 1,830, Chaozu at 530, and Yajirobe at 500. Even Bulma gets a rating here, at 16, which is actually pretty high. Over on the villain side, Vegeta is listed at 7,500, somehow weaker than Goku in this version, and 75,000 as a Great Ape. Nappa is 4,500, and the Cybermen are 1,200. Raditz is 1,250, yet another power level for him. The supporting cast gets some love too. King Kai is 3,500, Kami is 2,000, Korin is 1,700, and Master Roshi is 350. If Kami and Korin were that strong, then I don't know why they didn't try to help. Chi-Chi comes in at 300, and Ox King is back at 900, because apparently every source just thinks Saiyan Arc Ox King is built different. King Yema is 2,600, and both Gauss and Mez are 210. Princess Snake is 900. As you can see, some of these power levels are carried over from the movie pamphlet. They even give numbers to species. Namekians are 200 to 300, Saiyans range from 400 to 660, and Arlians are from 100 to 250. Next up is the Namek arc. Goku in base form, no Kaioken, is listed at 300,000, and his Super Saiyan form jumps to 15 million. Krillin is 16,500, Gohan 18,000, and Vegeta skyrockets to 3,600,000, putting him well above what he usually is in the Namek arc. We even get one of the only official numbers for Guru, at 2,000, and Nail is given a surprisingly high 400,000, which is nearly 10 times higher than his usual 42,000 from other sources. Piccolo, after fusing with Nail, reaches 800,000. The Namekian Elders are 1,000, while the Namekian Warriors range from 1,000 to 4,000, and Dende is a shocking 10,000, way above most Namekians, but I guess that's what happens when you get your potential unlocked. On the Frieza Force side, Frieza's first form is 500,000, second form is 1 million, third form is 3 million, and final form is 12 million, which means, like Sagas, they've missed a zero. Zarbon is 23,000 in his base form, and 46,000 in his monster form. Dodoria is 22,000. Frieza Force soldiers range from 1,000 to 4,000, while Kui is at 20,000. Captain Ginyu stays at 120,000, while the rest of the Ginyu Force lands Rikum at 60,000, Birder at 90,000, Jace at 85,000, and Goldo at 12,000. There's even some oddball characters here, like the fake Namekians, Zakron and Raiti at 500, and also the Gang of Space Orphans at just 10. Dr. Briefs even gets a power level of 12. And Porunga is given a non-applicable. The Garlic Jr. arc starts off with Gohan at 600,000, Krillin at 100,000, and Piccolo way ahead at 2 million. Garlic Jr. himself is 1,500,000, and when he's powered up by the Makio Star, he jumps to 3 million. His Spice Boys follow suit. Spice is 1 million, and 2 million with the Makio Star. Vinegar is 800,000, jumping to 1,600,000 with the Makio Star, while Salt is 400,000, and Mustard 450,000. Things get a bit stranger with Trunks, who's listed at 17,500,000, both in base and as a Super Saiyan, meaning his power level doesn't change, but his skills in-game do increase. This was likely a mistake, as we'll see later on. Mecha Frieza is 14 million, and King Cold 15 million. Though, like in other games, it looks like they left off a zero, probably to make things a little more manageable. Moving into the Android arc, Goku is 8 million in base, and 20 million as a Super Saiyan. Vegeta is 8,800,000, and 22 million as a Super Saiyan. Trunks is 7 million in base and 17,500,000 as a Super Saiyan. Here, Super Saiyan is a 2.5 times multiplier, instead of the usual 50 times. It also means that the earlier Trunks power level was probably a misprint. Gohan comes in at 4 million. Piccolo gets a massive boost at 20 million. Krillin is 600,000, Tien 800,000, and Yamcha is 600,000 as well. The androids themselves are hit or miss. 16, 17, and 18 are not given power levels, but Android 19 and Dr. Gero both come in at 10 million. And that's it! Like I mentioned before, there are other games that give random NPCs power levels, which I felt weren't really worth talking about, like these Ginyu Force recolors. But if you're curious, Milga here has a power level of anywhere from 65,000 to 75,000, and steals health from the Z Fighters. I love them. I did want to mention that, although not a proper power level, people do bring up the God scaling from Toriyama. Back when Battle of Gods was coming out, Akira Toriyama stated that Super Saiyan God Goku was a 6, Beerus was a 10, and Whis was a 15. Though with everything that's gone down since then, who knows what we're at. Finally, the last set of power levels I want to mention is one from an interview with Victory Uchida, the editor-in-chief of V-Jump, and the editor of the Dragon Ball Super manga. He mentioned that he had power levels in mind for those behind the scenes. Akira Toriyama was given a power level of 100 million. Dragon Ball Super artist Toyotaro had 10 million, and Victory Uchida himself had a power level of -100, marking the lowest power level we've ever gotten. And those are pretty much all the power levels I felt were relevant enough to mention. I'm sure there could be more, like I mentioned the card-as cards, but those are a lot harder to research. But someday perhaps I'll be able to do it. Anyways guys, thanks for watching. I hope this was useful and you learned something new. Be sure to crush that subscribe button like it's a scouter. And if you're looking for more deep dives into Dragon Ball, check out my series on one fact for every single Dragon Ball Z episode.